And we are live down here in the Democratic Party of Georgia, 1st Congressional District, down here in on the bottom of the state. And a lot of times we're always forgotten about, but these great candidates took the time, took the effort to come and spend some quality time with us. We are sorry we're late on the broadcast, but we're late because they have been working, and you know, they had some other debates and other things out there, but they said, hey, Jay, man, we still want to give some time to South Georgia. And so I'm very, very, very truly appreciative of them being able to spend this time with us down here in South Georgia. I am Jay Jones. I am the 1st Congressional District Chair of the Democratic Party of Georgia down here in South Georgia. And I am being joined by two of my esteemed colleagues. They are way more important than I am. That's why they moderating this thing right here, and they put me behind closed doors. And that is Mr. Kelvin Blue, the chair of Camden County, and Mr. Orlando Scott, the treasurer of Chatham County. And so it is important for us to make sure we have people from the 1st Congressional District to do these kind of moderations. And we want to know how important the Secretary of State position is to us. And so without further ado, I don't know which one of them is going to speak after I come off of this screen, but I'm going to turn it over to my two colleagues, and I'm going to come off the screen, and I will be the last voice you hear when it's time to close you out. And so Kelvin and Orlando, you now have the floor, sir.
Hey, thank you, Jay, and thank you, Kelvin, for being with us, and thank you, candidates. I'm so honored because I believe all of the executive races, you guys are probably the most qualified group of candidates out of all the races. And, you know, I know we only can have one winner in the primary, but my goodness, what a powerful pack of a group of Secretary of State candidates. So thank you for joining us. We're going to let you introduce yourself. Excuse me. We're just going to set a few ground rules. We ask that first, welcome the 1st Congressional District. I want to shout out all my counties from Bacon, Bradley, Bryan, Camden, Charleston, Chatham, Clint, Echols, Glenn. What's up, Miss Julie? Liberty, Renee, Long, Louds, McIntosh, Peters, Ware, and Wayne County. Like, welcome everyone, and so good to see Dr. Eves getting on board with us. But we're gonna set a few ground rules. We're gonna allow you to do 1-minute introductions, and then each question that we have will allow you 2-minute responses. And if anyone feels they need to rebuttal, 15 to 20 seconds. We have 4 candidates on tonight, so we want to try to keep it rolling, respect your time, get you out at a decent hour, no longer than an hour. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it. And we're going to start off with Mr. Senator Griffin. Just give us a quick 1-minute introduction of who you are and let everyone know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Floyd Griffin. I am from Millersville, the only candidate who's running from outside of the Atlanta metropolitan area. I'm a Tuskegee alum, retired Army colonel, Vietnam helicopter pilot, the first African-American senator of the 25th district and the first African-American to be elected in a majority white rural legislative district. Also the first African-American mayor of the city of Millersville. I am also a business owner, funeral business, which I sold a few years ago, but still involved. I'm also a author. I have published 2 books, and I am the next Secretary of State with the vote and support of the people around this state, and especially those individuals outside of the Atlanta metropolitan area.
Thank you, Senator Griffin. And we'll go to Ms. Dee Dawkins. Is it Hagler or Hagler?
It's Hagler. It's Hagler.
Hagler. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me. I am Dee Dawkins Hagler. I am a wife of Colonel David Hagler Jr., who's active duty military stationed at Fort Gordon in Augusta. Spent a lot of my time there. We are the proud parents of 4 children, ranging in age from 20 to 31. My eldest daughter right now is graduating in May from Morehouse School of Medicine. So she will be an MD. Yeah, she's a graduate of Spelman. My youngest baby, he is a graduate. He's at Morehouse School of Medicine. The second child, she's at Clayton State as a senior. I have so many children. Senior film production major, and the oldest child went to West Georgia. So I have 4 children, 2 grandchildren. Yes, I am a human resource manager by trade in corporate America. 25 years I am celebrating as an ordained AME preacher. And I am a voting rights, civil rights expert. And so I am here offering myself, served 9 years in the Georgia General Assembly. And during that time, I served in a leadership capacity every single year. Even when I walked in as a freshman, they made me the assistant deputy whip within a month's time. And then I served as chair of the Women's Caucus and chair of the Legislative Black Caucus, largest in the nation, for 4 years. And so I'm always on the forefront in leadership positions.
Awesome.
I want another 30 seconds.
Right at. It was right at.
You get your time, Senator.
I promise it was right at.
Well, I'm glad we're going to have some fun tonight because
we're going to have some fun, and the purpose is to have fun and just to get your message out to the people. There's no traps, no smoking mirrors, or smoking guns.
Really serious, yeah.
Yes. My man, Dr. Michael Owens, you're up next. The floor is yours.
Mr. Treasurer, good to see you again. Good to see you again.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you guys for hosting this and allow us to have an opportunity to spend some time with the people of the Mighty First tonight, and give everybody an opportunity to hear us as candidates. Many of you out there may know me as the former chairman of the Democratic Party in Cobb County, where I was elected twice and served to do some really good work, get some really good people elected. Over 12 seats was flipped red to blue since I put in my strategic framework back in 2016. Many of you may have heard of the Flip to 6 movement back in 2017, was when Jon Ossoff came to the scene, and then we didn't flip that seat at the time, but then we came on to my friend Congresswoman Lucy McBath, and ultimately had success there. Was able to expand access to the ballot for 486,000 people, which led to a lot of those seats getting flipped. So I just want to say thank you to all the good people that are serving within our Democratic Party and the county committees, because it's vitally important. I grew up in the South. I spent a lot of summers in Savannah. My grandparents lived there for quite some time when I was growing up. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I still serve in the Marine Corps, as a matter of fact, in the Marine Corps Cyber Auxiliary Reserves, where I work in cybersecurity. You guys that know me, I focus in critical infrastructures for over 20 years in some of the most critical systems and delicate, challenging aspects that we see today in cyberspace. That's why I'm running for Secretary of State, because I have the experience both from a political side of meeting people where they are, expanding access to the ballot, defending democracy, and also when it comes down to our election systems, the threats that we're facing, not only foreign, but also domestic threats that we're facing, being able to see those through. Happy to be here again tonight with our candidates and look to our lively discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you. And last but not least, Dr. John Eves. The floor is your 1-minute introduction. Please.
In downtown Atlanta, 1 minute, 60 seconds, not 5 minutes. You're right. There's some good folks up here. I really have grown in admiration for the candidates who are here. All of them are qualified. But I'm John Eves, and I'm father, former director of Peace Corps, teach at Spelman College, got 2 wonderful children who are HBCU products. And I am the former chairman of Fulton County government. Make no mistake about it, the largest local government in the state of Georgia. 1 million people, wow. 4,500 employees, $1 billion budget that I was responsible for, largest local voting operation in the state of Georgia. Brought economic development to Fulton County. I did my brother's keeper, criminal justice reform, But I look forward to thoughtful conversation, and even though I live in Atlanta, I want you to know that I have been throughout south of I-20 to many folks, many places, and folks were very happy to see me come because I certainly want to represent all of Georgia. So, Mr. Moderator, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And we're so happy to have you and every one of you. Now I'm gonna turn it over to my new friend, Dr. Kevin Blue. He's gonna start the first question of the night. 2 minutes.
Welcome, everyone. I'd like to start out with what I call the root or the basic purpose of the position. What I understand is, as the Secretary of State, you will be the chief clerk of the state, and you are the primary custodian of the most important state records. Now, I bring it up for multiple reasons. The question is, as the Georgia Secretary of State, what would you do as the chief clerk of the state as it pertains to maybe updating policies for access to these records, maybe ensuring a prompt turnaround for turnaround times for record requests? I'm on the chief clerk direction because that is a specific and also important part of this job. So my first question will go to Dr. Michael Owens, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm so happy to hear you lead off with that question because it's one that in many of these forums that we're doing, we don't even get asked a lot of times. It kind of danced around. Part of the reason why I'm running for this office is because I do understand that this role is in part Chief Administrative Officer. We have had, unfortunately, from our past Secretary of States, had multiple cybersecurity breaches, multiple data leaks as it relates to what should be the safest, most secure aspect of government. I myself have spent over 20 years working specifically in cybersecurity, data protection, data privacy. Nothing can be more important, not only from the functional aspects of our state government to work properly, but also for people's trust and faith in our systems that relate to our election systems, but as well as to our administrative systems. One of the largest breaches that we saw was actually internally when the Secretary of State's office was trying to request and transfer records from another sister department, which led to a huge breach. We cannot afford to have these anymore. We're in a state right now where information is the most important thing in business today. It's information. We can no longer afford to have Secretary of States who either want to cast this off to someone else and make it someone else's problem or simply ignore it. This is my life's work, ensuring that data is safe and secure. And we also utilize more technology in a way that we're making it more streamlined, more effective. You know, I tell people that this goes over to elections as well. When people are getting kicked off the voting rolls, because supposedly we don't know if they moved or if they've died or whatever. Well, company I work for right now, I can tell you, we have no problem knowing anytime where someone moves or someone's died. We have the technology in place to be able to solidify our records to make our voting and our administrative access secure and effective, and also do so in a way without making undue burden on the people of the state.
If I may also ask this question to Senator Floyd.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much from the standpoint of asking that question. But first of all, in answering that question, one of the things that I learned being in senior executive positions, especially in the military, is that when you're going into a new organization, you don't go in and say all of the things that you are going to do until you get in and find out what the problems are, because they may not be as severe as you think they are, or they may be at the point where you can fix those very quickly. So that's one of the things that I'll do when I go in. I will evaluate not only the cybersecurity side of the house, the record, maintaining the records, and et cetera. You know, I spent 23 years in the Army. You don't get to be a colonel in the Army if you don't understand how to protect personnel records, secret classified documents, and so forth. folks. So I bring some of that experiences with me. And on top of that, one of my campaign manager is a retired military person who's worked in the security side of the house at the White House under President Obama. And he and I have talked about these issues. He's going to end up possibly being my chief of staff, and I'm going to make sure that he has a major responsibility in overseeing that side of the house. Now, from the standpoint of the archives, now I could be wrong, but I was told by a person who's been there before that the archives is no longer under the Secretary of State. The archives is at one of the universities under their supervision. Now, if that is the case, that is something that I'm going to look at. Say again?
10 seconds.
Okay, 10 seconds. Well, that is something that I'm going to look at very closely once I get into the organization.
Next, if we can have D. Hager, you said Hagler? I'm gonna get it right the second time, I promise.
It's okay if you get it wrong. If you say it wrong, just vote for me. So it's D. Dawkins Hagler. D. Dawkins Hagler. So thank you so much. And so that is a very good question. So my background, of course, is human resource and organizational management. And so that goes with knowing how to staff organizations and being an administrator in organizations. We can look at many of the things that have happened in the Secretary of State's office, and it really is administrative issues because sometimes people are not as careful with information as they should be. And so I'm not going to try to outbest anyone about cybersecurity experience or anything like that, even though my husband was the chief of cybersecurity for the entire United States Army Reserve National Guard, and now is the chief of IT for the entire United States Army. Starting in 2 months, I'm going to talk about that with all that cyber stuff, because really what's important is I won't be doing cybersecurity. The person that I hire will be, because the job of the Secretary of State is to make sure that all 5 divisions run smoothly and effectively, and that the people of Georgia get the resources that they need and what they pay for, whether it is through voting, whether it is through corporations, whether it's through licenses, whether it's through securities or exchanges, or whether it's through nonprofits, making sure each individual office runs the way and efficiently the way that it's supposed to and how it's supposed to be set up. So me, I would also go in, like I've said, and start with a 90-day audit, because I first got to see where things have gone awry to be able to make my reports and to fix them. You know, that's what I am. People call me the Olivia Pope of the South. I am a fixer in real life. So I'm going to go in and look at the situation and make sure that I can gauge it and staff people where they should go accordingly. And so that is my superpower, knowing where to place people in organizations. And that's where I've gotten paid the big dollars over my life. Thank you.
All right. All right.
Hey, Treasurer Scott, I think that Dee's statement kind of referred to me when she talked about having a cybersecurity expert. Can I get a few seconds for rebuttal?
15 seconds. 15 seconds.
All right, let me explain to you all why this is so vitally important. Cybersecurity is at the forefront now of every single sector of business, no matter if it's nonprofit, no matter if it's in the corporate arena, no matter if we're talking about specifically government records. It cuts across the grain. The fact that we're seeing these breaches and issues now only make it more important that we don't go out and hire someone. We actually have someone who has this skill set germane to the office, and that's why I'm running for Secretary of State.
Thank you.
Dr. Eves, if you want to weigh
Mr.
in.
Blue, I think, Mr. Blue, I think that's really an excellent question, because it really speaks to the inept management of the office. All right, so I'm going to talk about it in 3 different ways. Number one, the management aspect of the Secretary of State's office, who manages and oversees employees and is responsible for setting a tone of high performance. People don't focus in on this, but right now there's basically about 100% turnover in the Secretary of State's office. It is a very low morale place. It is ineptly run, and the Secretary of State is a poor manager and a poor leader. And so I will first of all deal with the management aspect, motivating employees and make sure that they do a much better job coming up with performance standards. The second aspect of this question that I will own will be the business operational the processes. So for me, having served as a chairman of a county government, I understand all the complexities and all the competing interests and all the bureaucracy of government. But you can come up with a business mindset in terms of better business operations, better processes, a one-stop shop concept in terms of licensing. This is a little bit beyond your question, but I think the business processes, even applying for corporations, is convoluted and very confusing. Not to mention all the website craziness about the voting. So the whole business operation of the office is awful. And then the third piece of it is, if this archival piece is a part of the Secretary of State, so I don't know, but the records, you will see in me making sure that the records of Black people and all that we've done in this state will be a part of the Secretary of State's office. So I'll deal with it in terms of management, the operational aspect of the office in terms of better processes, and then thirdly, inclusion. Excellent question.
Okay, I'll go ahead and take over. So let's say you get through the May primary, and then in November, one of you win the general election. Please, I'm begging you. What's your number one priority in January 2023 going into office? Give me your number one priority. And I'll start with you, Dr. Eves, since we had you last. We'll let you go first this time.
Yeah. Among the challenges with the office, to me, this issue of trust in the elections process is probably the biggest problem.
Okay.
And I will certainly be very apolitical in this position, meaning I'm a Democrat, but I believe that voting, the elections process should be apolitical. Everybody should freely be able to vote. Their vote should count. And so I'm going to travel around the state as I've done as a candidate and meet with constituents and listen and incorporate suggestions in terms of how we can make this whole voting process a lot more transparent, fair, and instilling confidence. And then number two, related to this, I'm going to work with the local election boards. The Secretary of State's office, the Secretary of State does nothing, zero, with the local election boards. They're out there all by themselves. The folks who are doing good and want to be honest doesn't support them. And the folks who are going off the rail does nothing to stop them. So I will reestablish relationships with local election boards. But trust, I think, is the biggest problem right now in Georgia.
I'll let you take that question. Number one priority going into office. Ms. Hagler, you're muted. There you go.
Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you call my name. Okay, I
I'm
got
sorry.
you. Thank you. Thank
You're
thank
fine.
you. And so one of the things that I would do is, first of all, I got to see what's happening. And so people know that I, first of all, read and investigate and then work out. Because the devil is in the details sometimes. And we don't know what all the implications that these bad laws have had on the overall office of the Secretary of State until we go in and evaluate the entire situation from top to bottom. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm going to operate like that. As a matter of fact, it's just funny listening to even these candidate forums now, because it seems like if I say something weeks ago, then people catch up and say them now. But that's okay, because women just lead from the front. But what I was going to say is key that we get in there on day one and see what damage has been done, because there are still parts of that bill that I still have not unpacked to see what the impacts are, even in November 2022. Let me give you an example. One of those parts of that bill was this advanced voting and that identification.
Right.
Over 35,000 people have requested absentee ballots, but only about 200 people have received them back. Why? Because they were so smart in trying to add this extra layer of government. They didn't realize it was going to be hard for them to even execute once they decided that there was some type of lie for this whole voter fraud and this big lie that they, the insurrection of capital. So now they don't even know how to get the absentee ballots to the people. So now we've got to change our strategy of how to even get people to the polls to vote in this doggone election we're having right now. So the first thing I was do is go and unravel everything in the Secretary of State's office. I would start there and then determine what I'm going to do after about 90 or 120 days.
Okay, awesome. Senator Griffin, we'll let you take that question. First priority going into office.
Well, D, I'm going to have to agree with you on some of those things, and it's not because I heard them before. I spent 23 years in the Army. At least every 2 or 3 years, I was going into new assignments, major assignments. So one of the first things that I learned over that period of time is that you have to first go in and once again assess the organization that you're involved in. And that's the first thing I'm going to do, because now think about this. We have not had a Democratic Secretary of State since Kathy Cox was in there. I think she went out in 2007. It's been a Republican organization. So whomever is the next Secretary of State, you got to go in there and basically clean house. And you got to go in and bring your senior staff in and get them all on board and start working with them. So all of these other things we're talking about going out, doing this and all of that. The first thing you're going to do, Floyd Griffin is going to walk in and he's going to assess the senior staff first, because I got to put my staff in. I'm going to operate with 2 deputies, okay, an interior and exterior deputy. I'm going to have a chief of staff. And I've done this stuff. On day one, I have done this. It will, look, the next Secretary of State, we don't need a neophyte going in that job. You got to hit the ground running day one, and it's not an on-the-job position. Some of you have been in one assignment for 11 or 12 years, doing the same thing every day. Floyd Griffin, every 3 or 4 years, he was going into new assignments. Let me tell you something.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
2 minutes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Owens.
I'm going to be really, I'm going to work through this list really good. The very first thing I'm going to do as Secretary of State is stop this systematic targeting voter suppression that's been going on in the state, closing Black and brown precincts in Black and brown neighborhoods. We have to stop kicking the can down the road and blaming local election officials for systemic failures that really comes from the top office of the Secretary of State's office. We've got to stop data breaches that's been occurring, the lack of availability for systems when they're needed on election day. I'm a Marine Corps leader. I want to make this clear. I'm a Marine Corps leader and Fortune 500 executive. I've been a Fortune 500 executive at 4 different companies, 4 of the largest companies in the world. I know how to chew gum, walk, run, dive, and curse out people at the same time if necessary. I will build a strong team. I'm a certified information security auditor. I understand end-to-end process. I will put an audit in place, not the kind of fake audits you've heard Republicans talk about, okay? Real audits is going to look at people, processes, and tools and make sure we have the right thing put in place. Let's enforce the laws that's already on the books. I'm not going to become the Secretary of State and go argue about things that are going to take years in litigation or legislation to fix. I'm going to focus strategically on those things we can get done, the laws that are on the books that aren't being followed right now. And then lastly, we'll be very strategic about what we need to get done. Fair, free, secure, and efficient elections is what my focus is going to be on as the next Secretary of State.
Thank you. I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Blue.
Hey, may I say one thing?
15 seconds. Yes, sir.
Okay, 15 seconds. I understood the question is what you're going to do on day one, not what you're going to do over a year or 2 or 3 years. So I want y'all out there in the TV world to listen to the question and listen in the manner how we are answering that question.
Thank you, sir.
Can I get my 15 seconds on that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In the climate in which we're in right now, 2022 going into 2023, let me tell you this. If you wait until day one to get prepared and come up with a plan of what you need to do, you've already lost this fight.
Absolutely.
Sir, I will not.
Mr. Griffin. Mr. Griffin.
For day one.
You only get one rebuttal.
I can't do everything.
All right, Mr. Blue, it's yours. You're on mute, sir. You're on mute.
Good move. Going forward, my next question has actually, a couple of you have actually started. As the Secretary of State, one of your primary jobs is to oversee the election process. With that being said, the question is, what method would you employ to prevent mass voter suppression in the state of Georgia? And we'll start off with Ms. D. Dawkins Hager.
That's okay. That was your second time. Third time gonna be the charm. You're gonna get it right. I know. Okay. So one of the things that I would do is make sure, because it's almost, let me just be realistic. With the laws that are in place, with the General Assembly still being Republican, with them still trying to pass laws and will pass laws, granted a Black person wins Secretary of State, they're going to do even more than what they've done now. But how we stop the mitigation of bad suppression bills is just not to implement it to the degree they want us to implement it in. Black people have always known how to work around bad situations. When they've told us that we could not vote, when they told us to count the number of jelly beans in a jar or the number of bubbles in a bar of soap, we know how to get around situations. And this is why a Secretary of State needs someone like me who understands how Black women have that mother wit, and we know how to get around any situation presented to us. Because what they've done is they made it almost impossible. But we don't, if they tell us that we can't give out water, the churches can't give out food and water, it doesn't have to be at the church. Then you put it down the street where they can pick up a bag. We don't know how we did it back in the day when we got on these buses with brown paper bags and gave out food and water. So whatever they do, whatever tricks they have, we just have to be a little bit better in going around them, especially on education. The Secretary of State's office has a budget that can be used for education. So we got to educate our people, educate these boards of elections that I've traveled to. I've spoken to over half of the board of elections between 2018 and now, because I didn't start yesterday trying to run for this office. I started 4 years ago and I'm just finishing what I started. So we've got to be able to go in and talk to people, show them what they need to make these elections more accessible. And we can't ourselves, so we're going to stop shutting down voting polls. That's not our job. The local board of elections and county commissions can shut down polling places. Our job is to educate them so they'll not do it and divert resources to them so they won't have to. But then they've already stopped nonprofits being able to give money to offset these bad elections. But this takes more than sound bites. And so that's why you need me in this office so I can get it right. In the process. That's all I can say. But I would do my best to try to stop, the bloodshed that's already started in this whole voter apathy, voter suppression, voter just downright ridiculous situation that we're in.
Time.
I'm sorry. I'm done.
Dr. Eves?
Yeah, this is very straightforward. It really comes down to leadership. I think that you have the right person in the office of Secretary of State. A lot of the shenanigans that go on could be at least checkmate. And so I will stop it. This is really about shaving off the numbers, just enough percentage points to sway an election one way versus the other. It's not so much about stopping all Black and brown people from voting. It's just shaving off a little bit. And so having somebody in the Secretary of State's office who's going to defend, checkmate all of these things that are being done on a statewide level as well as on a local level will make a big difference. The other thing that I want you to understand about my candidacy and my administration is I'm going to push for full 100% voter registration. It's an aspirational goal, meaning it may not necessarily be literally obtained, but you can still thrive towards it. So Georgia actually right now has between 85 and 90% of its eligible voters are actually registered to vote. So I will do as much as I can to increase the voter rolls by targeting college and university students as well as ex-offenders. Try to get them to understand the importance of voting and get them registered. My goal is to make the voter rolls, the registration, a lot easier, to grow it so that more people who are eligible to vote are voting in Georgia.
Dr. Michael Owens? Dr. Owens?
Yeah, thank you. So I did say the first thing is stopping voter suppression, systemic and targeting. And the reason I said that I would do that as from the role of Secretary of State is because that's exactly the impetus of how this started. The Secretary of State actually hired a consultant to go throughout Georgia and shut down polling cases in Black and brown communities. It is documented. The Secretary of State has a lot of latitude in what they're able to do. And unfortunately, it's insidious. They use the ADA Act, the American Disabilities Act, to go in and sometimes to old churches and say, oh, well, you don't have, a railing that's exactly 36 inches off the ground, so therefore you don't meet the qualifications, and shut them down. That is something from the Secretary of State's office we can absolutely stop. The slogan of the United States Marines is adapt, improvise, and overcome. That's exactly what I will do in the face of what will likely be a Republican House and Senate. Even when I become the next Secretary of State, I will work to shut down and stop voter suppression. I'm battle tested. Look, I've been the chairman elected twice of the Democratic Committee in the most reddest county as far as geographical goes, the home of Newt Gingrich, right? If I can work through that and flip seats in this county and turn this county blue, I can stop voter suppression, I can expand access to the ballot, and I can make sure that Georgia is a state where everyone's voices can be heard.
And Senator Floyd Griffin?
Thank you very much. For the last 4 days, I've been traveling around the state, around South Georgia, Middle Georgia, and Southeast Georgia on a meet and greet bus tour. That's what I'm doing now. And I've been listening to the voters out there and what they consider voter suppression and how they are going to work that in their communities. Okay. And one of the things for as voter suppression, the law is in place. Okay. And we aren't going to be able to change that law as a Secretary of State. Okay. So I'm encouraging people to do things simple from the standpoint of water. You take your water to the polls with you. Don't let that stop you from going voting. And one person today mentioned, well, what we are going to do are set up a table outside of I think it's 150, the 150 feet. We're going to set a table up out there and we're going to have water out there if people want to go and get water. We have to educate our people, absentee ballots. We have to educate them if they want to vote absentee. We need to make sure not only from the Secretary of State's office, but we must educate the local elected officials. And one other thing, we need to educate our Democratic Party, the Democratic committees, and Democratic local parties and so forth. They have a role in this. See, we are trying to take the monkey and put on the back of just the Secretary of the State. It's not just the Secretary of State that has responsibility for that. That's all of us, and especially in the Democratic Party. Maybe we can stop having all of these forums at the last minute and going out there and talking to people about how they need to get to the polls and vote, and don't let the suppression stop us from doing that.
Time. Orlando?
Thank you, Senator Griffin. My question is, and this is for everyone, how will you work across, what's your strategy of working across party lines for the greater good of the state? So really simple question, but not so simple, I guess, process with the state of our current legislature. So I'll start with you, Senator Griffin. So how will you work across party lines for the greater good of the state?
Well, once again, I'm going to go back to my background and experience, starting in the military, because being the first African-American mayor of a predominantly white city, being the first African-American senator of a predominantly white district, and being the only African-American senator who represented a white district in the legislature, I had to work across party lines to get things done. So I'm just going to use my background and experience and build relationship. You know, when you are in the legislature, you know, that's one good thing about going being the next Secretary of State, having served in the legislature and understand the legislative process and things that we have to put in place to get support from the legislative body. The Speaker in the House and I served together in the Senate. I'm going to try to work that relationship we had when I was in the Senate to help from him to introduce certain legislation that we possibly will bring forth from the Secretary of State.
Mrs. Hagler, how would you work across party lines for the greater good of our state?
First of all, and that's a very good question. And I'm going to be honest and forthright right now, because we as Black people don't even have time to play no more. So I would like to play across aisles, but let me just be very clear. Power never concedes power without a demand. It never has, and it never will. The Republicans will sit and have a drink with you, sit here and tell you that they're going to pray for your family and ask you how you're doing, and they still pass these voter suppression laws that are detrimental to our people. So if I sit here and pretend to tell you that I'm going to sit and try to beg or plead with them when they know what they're doing is wrong, I would be telling you a lie. What I would do is tell them by the error of their ways and say, can we work together? But even if they decide not to work together, that will not stop me, because there are millions of Black people in this state that are depending on me and people like us on this call to make things right. And so we saw what happened in DC. President Biden got put there by Black people. We're still waiting on a federal voting rights bill. We don't have it. Black people can get shot in a church, and we still don't have anti-hate Black crime bills in this country. So why do I sit here and try to pretend with y'all like I'm going to sit here and play across the aisle with people who don't want to play with us, would not be telling the truth. This is a serious situation. They have passed these voting laws in this state to attack the Black vote and no other vote. We can pretend like it is, but it's not. They're upset because there are over 2 million Black people registered in the state of Georgia. They did not like that we put up an African American and a Jewish person to the United States Senate. They changed the laws, and not just in Georgia because of what we did, but in 49 of the states, they introduced legislation to keep us from voting. So they are very clear that they don't want to play with us and be bipartisan. So what we've got to do is do what we have to do and make sure our people understand how to vote, when to vote, who's going to help them vote, get them to the polls to vote, so that we can change all the people who have made the bad laws in the first place and flip majority back from the Republicans to the Democrats, so we can be about the business of making sure that we have adequate health care and everything else down the road. That's all. I don't know.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Eves posed the same question. How will you work across party lines for the greater good of the state?
Great question. You almost gave the answer to the question. My goal is to work with folks to achieve something for the greater good. Really, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm gonna be elected because I want to produce results for Georgians. I can be a strong Democrat, still do it. Let me just tell you a little bit about my background. I didn't talk about it earlier. As chairman of a large urban county, I was able to work with the Bush administration, got a second chance $2.5 million grant. I worked with the Obama administration. I worked with Governor Deal on criminal justice reform. I worked with Governor Perdue on saving Grady Hospital. I worked with the Republican legislature to get them to see the craziness of splitting Fulton County up and creating a new county called Milton. I worked with the Fulton County delegation on a congressional level. Price, Scott, Lewis, Democrats and Republicans. I worked with Johnny Isakson. I worked with Saxby Chambliss, who helped get funding for Fulton County. I worked with mayors. So listen, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to work with folks. I can still be a strong Democrat. I can still be about inclusion for Black folks, et cetera. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna work with the Republicans and get my job done.
Okay. And then we'll pose that same question to you, Dr. Owens. How will you work across party lines for the greater good of our state?
You know, I'm going to have to kind of go with my sister Dee on this one. You know, we thinking that people are going to be willing to play across the aisle. The truth of the matter is the closer and closer we get, the more successes we have, particularly statewide in this state, to having Democrats in these elective offices, the harder and harder they're going to squeeze to hold on to power. You know, so the discussion, people like to talk about working across the aisle, but the fact of the matter is Republicans have to be willing to negotiate in good faith. And the fact of the matter is oftentimes for the critical legislation, they are not willing to work in good faith. You know, I did my postdoctorate studies at Harvard University Kennedy School of Government, and we looked at this scenario. Anytime power is changing, it is not being done in good faith. You know, I've had Republicans tell me in the elevators right there in Cloverdale building at the Capitol, you know, that bill wasn't that bad, but I couldn't say something about this. Our leadership won't let us do something like this. I've gone through leadership programs at the state and county level, the same thing. So I've gotten to know a lot of our Republican legislators on a personal level. And I can tell you, regardless of how they personally feel about certain things, they're not going to vote in the way that's going to make sure that we as Black people, we as minorities, we as women are getting the fair share of the stake at this. Look, I'm an engineer, right? I'm coming to be the Secretary of State to solve problems, not to go bicker and argue more about what could be done or should be done. You know, the key thing about what I'm going to focus on is things that do not require legislation or litigation. I said it before, but it's important. We've got to be focused on this to make sure we can have fair, free, secure, and effective elections. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to worry about bringing water to the polls. I'm going to worry about shortening the lines.
Thank you, Dr. Owens. Senator Griffin, 15 seconds if you have a rebuttal. You can unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
I agree with what's been said, but see, I'm not going to lay back and die and not deal with the legislature. I will deal with the legislature when I need to deal with the legislature, because I'm not going to sit around and wait for the Senate and the House and to flip. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
So when necessary, that's what I'm going to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Guess what? We're going to give you back your time. This has been an action pack. I know it's been a long night. You coming back to back, so we're gonna let you rest up a little bit. We're gonna get ready to close it out. I want you to give me a 1-minute pitch. Well, Chairman Jay, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
All right.
and have us closed out. Thank you.
All right, my good people, hold just a second. All right, boom. Let's put it in the view we can all see and we can all trust. All right. It's very important for us to have these healthy discussions as far as what's going on with Secretary of State. It's probably the most decorated, celebrated, and destroyed position over the last 2 or 3 years, because you've taken the power of voting rights away. Businesses in the state of Georgia run under this. It is probably one of the things that we need to make sure that should have been in Democratic hands a long time ago. And so once again, I am grateful, thankful that y'all all took the time to give me this, give South Georgia that 1 hour perspective. And so in closing, as Orlando was going to allude to, give me your last 1 minute spiel, 1 minute pitch that you know you have not had a chance to discuss in all these, and I agree with what was said earlier, in all these debates, forums, conversations, and everything under the sun, where we should be spending more time really getting to the root of the things. And my thing is, vote in this election 4 years ago. I know in South Georgia, I can say for Chatham County, 18% of the voting population showed up. 18% showed up. And what that 18% decided on, the school board for that 4 years, the judges for that 4 years, the representation that represented us on the Democratic Party ticket that 4 years. All this was discussed in what we're talking about May 24th, 4 years ago. and only 18% of the voting population showed up. When we talk about closing this thing out, tell me why it's so important for us to go to the ballot and vote for you and make sure we deliver more than 18%, more than 40%, and in the 80 percentile. You know that's impossible, but if it happens, 80 percentile, we know that democracy stood still on this country. And so I'm gonna go in alphabetical order. I'm gonna go with you first, Dr. Eves, and then I'm gonna go with, I'm gonna go with you first, D, because I'm gonna give respect to the name, the Dawkins name. And then I'm gonna go with you, Dr. Eves, and I'm gonna go with you, Senator Griffin, and we're gonna close out with you, Dr. Owen. So D, you have the floor. Close us out.
First thing I thought about when all of this was going on was I was the only candidate called D, and I've decided on the next forum that I'm either going to put doctor, a representative, or honorable, or reverend beside my name so I can get the same respect as the men since I worked so hard. That's what I just decided. But the next thing I want to talk about is how we have to learn how to walk heavy in everything that we do. The reason why it might be 18% in Chatham and maybe 12% someplace else and 25% is because people need something to vote for and to believe in. And many times we are detrimental to our own good, and not just us individually, but collectively as a party. See, what happened to us in 2018 when people didn't even come back out to the runoff and vote down the ballot is because it did not energize the very base of which the party is made up of. We don't want to talk about it, but the majority, both of the voters in the Democratic Party are first Black women and then Black men. But yet we have a party that fails to understand or recognize the strength that we have as a people, and to understand that young people, elderly people, disabled people, military, and everything in between want people who they can vote for, who are about their word and will keep their promise. Because people will remember not only what you say, but how you make them feel and how you've showed up before in other elections and other places. And so I'm that candidate. I am the candidate. People can check my record. People know what I stand for. My yes is yes and my nay is nay. And I want to represent, yes, all the people of Georgia, but I am particularly concerned about Black people right now, because all of these laws that are being passed are set up for our failure. But I just believe that this is our time and our season to put the right people in place. Because a lot of people are upset right now that Biden is in place and we still have student loan debt, and came on TV today saying $33 billion for Ukraine. Okay, fine, give Ukraine $33 billion, but we still need reparations, and we still need, how about $100 billion to put towards student loan debt eliminations? How about we do that? So that's why people don't want to come back and vote in these elections. So let's have some honest conversations. So I'm D. Dawkins Hagler. I have the experience, the education, and the skills needed for this position. And I am ready on day one. And out of all of the men that's running this race, I feel like I am the most qualified to get that job done on day one. Thank you.
And that was Dr. D. Dawkins Hagler. I'm going to give her doctor, honorary doctor, right here on today's show. And so we're going to Dr. John Eves. You can close us out with your remarks, brother.
Yeah, I think the voters need to understand that voting and representation is connected to economics. And so I've spoken often about the economic injustice that occurs every day in Georgia, and we don't even think about it. We accept it. So of all the responsibilities of the Secretary of State's office, one of the areas I'm going to focus in on is the corporations division. It's unacceptable for 35% of the small business owners in Georgia who are Black to have a failure rate at 20% the first year. The Secretary of State's office can do something about that and support small business ownership, particularly for Black people and women. It's unfortunate that we're 32% of the population is African Americans. But when it comes to the procurement of contracts on state and local level, it's in the low single digits. Because I've traveled along the coast, been to Savannah, down to Brunswick, down to Camden, I have a greater understanding of the port industry. There's only one Black person on the Savannah Port Authority board among roughly 16 people, only one woman. And that whole chain supply industry from the port to Target to the table, to the kitchen table, is not diverse, I'll use the Secretary of State's office to do all that I can to increase inclusion in the chain supply industry, specifically the port industry. So there's a difference between me and others. I see the economic injustice that's happening in the state and the lack of Black folks being included. And I'm going to use my office to make sure that we are at the table.
Thank you, Dr. Eves, and we're going to you, Dr. Michael Owens. You got the floor.
You know, Michael Owens, the Secretary of State, is looking to transform the office of Secretary of State. For a long time, the Secretary of State's office has been this backwood, bureaucratic, old boys type of office, or people looking for a political promotion, or someone simply, biding out a few years so they can run for governor. I can tell you, I want none of that. I want to serve the people of the state. I want to solve solutions, and I want to solve problems with innovative, timely solutions like I've done time and time again. I'm going to spend your tax dollars making sure that the Secretary of State's office eyes are focusedly or specifically on the prize of making sure that we keep information safe, that we expand access to the ballot, and we have fair, free, and secure elections. I've been stepping up for the safety and security of this country since I was 17 years old. I was a decorated Marine. Now I'm a globally renowned cybersecurity data protection expert. From GMA to GDOC to the Port of Savannah to local municipalities, I've done the work in ensuring that we're safeguarding the state, ensuring that we're putting practices in place that's going to make everyone's lives better. The Secretary of State's office could not be more important in 2022. I think that's part of the reason why you see fantastic candidates such as myself and the others that are running for this office, because it is that important. But I will tell you, I am a candidate that's beat Republicans time and time again. You don't turn Cobb County blue without having strong leadership in place and someone who can put together a strategy to win. We have to win this election in November. Michael Owens is your key to winning this election in November, the only person that can build the type of coalition necessary to take on the Republicans and do what John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock did, was win Georgia and by turning it blue. We can do that again with Michael Owens on the ticket as your next Secretary of State. Thank you.
And Mike, that was on me. I was supposed to go Floyd next, but then you know what? I'm glad you stepped in and was on top of your game. Floyd, go ahead and close us out, brother.
Thank you very much. Floyd Griffin is the next Secretary of State because of his background, his experience, and what I will do to move the Secretary of State to the next level. I'm not just going to concentrate on elections. The Secretary of State has 5 divisions. All of those divisions are important. So I'm going to look at all of those. I'm going to put the infrastructure in to make sure that is done, because I have done it for over 5 decades. All you need to do is go and look at, view my website. And the last Lieutenant Governor of this state, Mark Taylor, has endorsed my candidacy. And he stated that Floyd Griffin is the most qualified person to be the next Secretary of State. We need to have a Secretary of State also from outside of the Atlanta metropolitan area. We need to have more statewide constitutional officials from outside of the state, from outside of the Atlanta metropolitan area. We talk about, and we hear people all the time talking about one Georgia. How can you have one Georgia if you don't have some of your constitutional people outside of the Atlanta metropolitan area? I'm from Millersville. I am a native of Millersville, and I'm the only person running for office as Secretary of State, a native of Georgia. So it is time to bring somebody to the table like Floyd Griffin. This election is about executive level leadership, executive level management, and executive level experience. I have it. And as someone just stated, I am not running for this office to run for governor, senator, or anything else in the future. I want to go in and fix the problems because I am a fixer. You don't become a colonel in the United States Army if you're not a fixer. Thank you all very much. Vote for Floyd Griffin on the 24th of May, which is my birthday.
Outstanding.
All right, so I want to give special kudos thanks to my compadres, Mr. Kelvin Blue, chair of Camden County. I'm trying to put him in Chatham County, but he's in Camden County, and my good friend Orlando Scott, treasurer of Chatham County. Now, I make it a point of running my mouth, and my thing is I don't have a problem calling you D, because I've been called you D since I know you, Floyd since I know you, John, and Michael. I call y'all by y'all first name. And my thing is I do that because it's not out of disrespect to your title, because y'all earned those doctorates, y'all earned those titles. And my thing is I don't take anything from that. And I want us all on the same plateau, same platform here. And I am truly appreciative that all four of y'all took the time to spend time with us tonight here in South Georgia, because it's very important to get the message out there. Because 4 years ago, what was said to me was, in this platform wasn't available, ready like it is now. But 4 years, what was said to me was, well, Jay, we don't know who to vote for, because they don't even come down here to South Georgia to tell us who they are. And you took the time tonight to give us a snippet of who you are. And I truly appreciate it and thank you. And I know that y'all have made time to come into Savannah, Georgia and other surrounding parts in the 1st Congressional District. So there's no conversation, no lie about that either. But I ask y'all, when it comes down to it, and I know May 24th, now it could be a bad joke out there, but May 24th may not be the end. And it may come a time where we all have to have a convoluted conversation to see who is going to represent us come November the 8th. And I hope that everybody who is running for the Secretary of State has that conversation to make sure it's clear to deliver the best choice that can bring home the bacon when it comes to the state of Georgia. And so I appreciate y'all taking the time to spend a candid conversation with us here in South Georgia. And I want to remind you and everybody else out there that South Georgia is the one that will deliver the race, not Atlanta. South Georgia will be the one to deliver the race, because we're learning and we're earning and we're getting together to understand the power that we need to provide to make Georgia move forward. And so once again, to my 4 good friends that I will call by your first name moving
You
forward.
can call me by my first name.
Until whoever becomes the Secretary of State, then I'll call you the Secretary of State then. But when that happens, we want to make sure we're on a personal level. And all jokes aside, understand that personal thing is what's going to get that relationship that's going to deliver when it comes to May 24th and when it comes to November the 8th. I thank y'all. Y'all know how to get a hold of me if you need me. And I appreciate the 4 of y'all taking the time to be here in South Georgia. Do y'all have anything y'all want to add before we close out?
Yes.
Vote for Floyd Griffin.
All right,
Thank
Floyd.
Yes.
Thank
I
you
do
guys
have a
for
question.
doing what you're doing. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
doing what you're doing.
John.
Mr. Moderator, I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot of speculation in Atlanta about some sort of meeting of the Democratic Party on the 30th. What's going on?
So to answer your question, we have a state committee meeting April the 30th, which is to Saturday. And that state committee meeting is to talk about a few things we'll be voting on, and it's a platform agenda. And I'll be glad to send it to all 4 of y'all if y'all do not have information tied to that.
So word has it here, I know you're being a great diplomat here.
I
Word
have
has
to.
it here, they're trying to change the bylaws to endorse in primaries. And I just think that that is anti-democratic. And I want to just let you know that people are beginning to question that, and do all that you can to table that, because it's going to be disastrous.
I do not disagree with that in any form or fashion, my friend. I think that what happened, and I don't have any problem speaking up and talking about these kind of conversations. I think, to be candid about the conversation, somewhere down the line, we lost democracy in understanding how the committee structure works, state committee structure works, and how the DPG works. And we put trust in the people we should have never put trust in. And I think because of that, people have started using that power and authority to not move in the narrative of democracy. And until we all come together and challenge those systems, we're going to keep having these kind of problems and discussions. And I don't want to get in the platform piece right here because I don't want to steal my thunder I might have on Saturday to be actually to give an intro. But I do appreciate John bringing that conversation because it is very important that we have these candid conversations. And so if anybody else wants to add to that, I'm all ears. Floyd, you had something you want to add?
Yes, I like to add that, John, and thank you for bringing it up. Because I mean, it makes absolutely no sense at all. 20 something days before the primary election, and you're going to do something like that. This is my question. If you are going to do this, why have a primary? Just don't have a primary. And I'll be very honest with you. If I had known that this was going to happen, I probably would have ran as a independent, you know, and I spent a heck of a lot of time out on the campaign trail, just like my colleagues up here, and spent a lot of money, a lot of my personal money to go through this kind of crap. So, you know, I am not pleased with it at all if that come to, and you know what? It's going to divide the Democratic Party. Here in Georgia, is going to cause some problems that the Democratic Party from the top down don't want to see happen. And Floyd Griffin don't mind speaking up because I don't have anything to lose, and I don't have a dog in that particular fight other than to do what's right. And that is not right.
So let me speak on this for a minute. I am a state committee member, have been since I think 2014, 2015, and was involved in this. So, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Jay, but that provision about endorsing candidates in the primary it's already been approved. It was approved at our last state committee meeting. What was not approved was the specifics on the policy and how it was going to be carried out. So just to inform everybody, that has already been passed, okay? I spoke up and asked the details about it. There was a bylaws committee, and there's another committee that was going to be formed to actually go through and come up with the details, the criteria of how someone would request, you know, an endorsement from a party, a state party, county party, what have you. Now, there was concerns, and I brought the concerns up on the floor about how this could be utilized, how any candidate, right, once this was approved, could start going and requesting endorsements from county parties and state parties. Floyd, this is particularly problematic to candidates outside of Metro Atlanta, right? Because most state committee members, we know how this works. Most state committee members are concentrated within the Metro Atlanta area. So if a endorsement was going to come down, it would make it almost impossible for someone outside of Metro Atlanta to get an endorsement. So I spoke on that on the floor that day of that meeting. However, and I actually made calls and talked to people prior to that. I was told, and this came up, so I'm fair to share it with everyone, that the reason for this was not for any of us to go and make a request to the state party or county party for endorsement. It was made to where in certain places in this state, where as the shift starts to happen from Democrat to or from Republican to Democrat, that there would be some Republicans that are out there that will start running as Democrats in local county offices. Okay, and they could easily, and we know how this works. In some places, there's only a couple of hundred votes decide certain offices. So the goal, the idea behind this was that you could have county endorsements where the people who knew who people were would be able to endorse that good Democrat and basically be able to isolate that Republican running as a Democrat just so they could stay in office. So that was the goal, the reason, shall I say, that was the reason why this was brought to the table and why this was fleshed out. I think there's, you open Pandora's box, however, when you start going down that path. But that was a path that was explained to me when I asked about it prior to the meeting. That is what was explained in depth during the meeting. It was approved. It was voted on and it was approved. However, what wasn't approved, again, was the process, the documentation that goes along with that provision as how it will be carried out and how it will be executed. Now, to my knowledge, I don't know anybody that seeked an endorsement from a county party or a state party, but that was the impetus of what was done. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jay.
So, and to piggyback, yes, to a degree, Mike, we are correct. My only quorum about laws is this, Mike. The last time the bylaws have been changed from the DPG was 2012. So we're talking about almost 10 years removed from being changed. What's always presented to us is not always the reason or legalities of why they're presenting something. There's always a forward thought further down the road that we don't always proceed. And in that conversation, it was absolutely right. As far as transformation of people switching parties would be the conversation. That was the language that was presented to me. However, the bylaws change. It was approved, and with its approval, I too was one of those people who spoke up. I did not vote no against it because I knew we needed some kind of bylaw change, but I abstained from voting on the bylaws because I didn't think we had the right participation that was involved in the bylaws change, meaning rural Georgia wasn't involved in the conversation. That was my main conversation when we talked about it. But when you look at something, the changes have happened, one set of bylaws to be where now the endorsement conversation is being brought up to play and being real forthright and up in front with everything. I have seen in this election cycle more endorsements than I've ever seen in my lifetime of endorsements. And my thing is, I don't question, call it into play or anything like that, because I understand it's politics. It's not fair politics, but it's politics. And it's politics that a lot of us have put ourselves in predicament and play of. I don't like the endorsement game, especially in primaries, because the simple fact is, I think that we are brothers and sisters supposed to be in the same party. And so why are we picking sides and choosing sides within the endorsement track? And we've gone way beyond the scale of what endorsement should look like. And that's my personal opinion on it. And I think that a lot of people have stepped out of the realms of what the bylaws, whether it be August 28th bylaws or predates August 28th bylaws, have stepped out of the precursor of what we should and should not be doing. And Floyd, I think he said it best. I think we're on a slippery slope right now, because my thing is, when you hurt me, I'm going to remind you. And I think that we shouldn't have done that. I think we should have just played fair, above water with each other, and then let whatever happens, smoke happens in May 24th, happens May 24th, and let's work together. And I think it's going to be real hard for us to do that. And so I hope I wasn't.
Voters decide the winner, not the party.
That's where I'm
The
at.
voters decide.
That's right. That's right. And that's, I mean, that's the, hey, man, that's the, all of us, that's the political process that I've known for years. And I have not seen anything like this before. I'm going to have to sign off. I got you.
I got to sign off too.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have anything else?
Great discussion. Thank you guys.
I'll be there
I appreciate
Saturday.
it. I'll see y'all this weekend if y'all in town. Talk to y'all later.
I'll be there Saturday to carry the torch.
Right, Chair.